Sadashivasamarambham
Shankaracharya-madhyamam
Asmadacharya-paryantam
Asmadacharya-paryantam
Vande
Vande
Guru-paramparam.
Om
Om
Sahana
Sahanavavatu
Sahanau
Sahanau
Bhunaktu
Bhunaktu
Sahaviryam
Karavam
Karavavahai
Tejasvinavadhitamastु Ma
Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma
Vidvishavahay.
Om
Om
Shanti
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 Shanti.
Shanti.
Om Tat Sat, Om Namah Shivaya. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Acharya.
Okay, so we are on Karika number 7. So we will chant that. Please unmute yourself. Nakashasya ghatakashaha
Nakashasya Ghatakaashah
vikara vayavau yatha
Vikara Vayavau Yatha
naivatmanas sada jivaha
Naivatmanah Sada Jivaha
vikara vayavau sata.
Vikara Vayavau Tatha.
Okay, so I will just mute you all and yes. So I just realized the audio was on all this time. So, you guys must have been treated to some music. Did you hear?
No, Acharya.
No.
Yes,
Okay, great.
Acharya, I heard.
Yeah.
Okay, great. All right. So now we are on a very important topic, which has been discussed in almost all the darshanas. So what is the relationship between Jivatma and Paramatma? This is a discussion which happens in all darshanas, all the philosophies. And oh, did I not put the recording on? Yes, it is on, right? Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
it's on, Acharya.
Okay. So remember that all the darshanas are based on the same prasthana trayam, right? What are the different views? But the same prasthana trayam is interpreted in different ways. The first one is that Jivatma is different from Paramatma, totally different. There is no question of Jivatma ever becoming Paramatma. This is Dvaita Darshanam, the dualistic philosophy, also based on the same Prasthanatrayam, right? Then there is a second school of thought, a second interpretation. Jivatma and Paramatma are different, but not totally different. So Jivatma is a part of Paramatma. But at the same time, Jivatma is not Paramatma. For example, my hand is part of me, but my hand is not me, though it is a part. So this is a different interpretation. What is the interpretation called?
Vishishta Advaitam.
Vishishta Advaita. And then there is pure Shuddha Advaitam, which says that Jivatma and Paramatma are identical. There is a difference which is in name only. The difference is Mithya. It's Mithya Bhedaha. Right? And so in this Karika, he says, you have to break up that Karika into small pieces to understand. Ghatakashaha akashasya na vikaraha. So Ghatakashaha means the pot space. Akasha means total space. Na vikaraha. Vikara is product. So the pot space is not a product of the total space. That is one interpretation, one definition. And again, you have to repeat the whole thing. Ghatakashaha akashasya na avayavaha. Avayavam is a part. And therefore, here he says the pot space is not a part of the total space. The spot space is neither a product nor a part of total space. Now you remember that this is what we initially presented in Tattvabodha as what the 5 features of Atma, neither part nor product. So all these things you will see here. What is the argument for saying that it is not a product? If you say that the pot space is a product, is a vikaraha, then the product does not exist at some point of time, and in another point of time it is created and therefore exists. So then we will have to say that the pot space did not exist at one point of time, but now the pot space is existing, therefore it is created. What is the fallacy with that argument? You never see the creation of pot space. All you see is creation of the pot. Okay. So therefore you say that the pot space cannot be a product because you never see it being born. What is born is the pot, not the pot space. That is the argument for not a product or not a modification. Then second one was akashaha, akashasya ghatakashaha na avayavaha. It is not a part also. The argument for that is pretty simple. What is the argument? The pot space cannot be part of total space. What is the logical argument for that?
So the space cannot be divided.
Space cannot be divided. Akasha is akhandaha without parts. And therefore, to say that this pot space is either a product or a part is a misconception. There is no creator-created relationship between total space and spot space. There is no karana-karya sambandha between ghatakashaha and akashaha. So that's what he says. Yatha tatha, in exactly the same way, jivaha, the jiva, sadana eva vikaraha, is never a product of the atma. Sada eva no avayavaha atmanaha, is never a part of the atma. So this is what is stated in this karika. The jivatma is never a product and is never a part of the atma. So we can say in conclusion that Jivatma is not born out of Paramatma, and therefore Paramatma is not the cause, is not the Karanam for Jivatma. Why? Because Paramatma is Turyam, Karya, Karana, Vilaksharam, different from the product as well as the creator. And therefore Paramatma is Advaitam. Okay. Now we look at Karika number 8. We will chant. Please unmute yourself. Yatha bhavati balanam
यथा भवति बालानां
gaganam malinam malaihi
गगनं
गगनं मलिनं
मलिनमलैः
मलैः
tatha bhavatya buddhanam
तथा
तथा
भवत्यबुद्धानां
भवत्यबुद्धानाम्
atmapi malino malaihi.
आत्मापि मलिनो
आत्मापि मलिनो
मलैः
मलैः.
So in an earlier Karika, in the last class, I think it was Karika number 5. We said that when one pot space gets polluted, the other pot spaces are not affected by that pollution. Okay. So that was by way of pointing out, but there could be a possible misinterpretation of that Karika as saying that other pot spaces can be polluted. There is a possibility of other pot spaces getting polluted, but when one pot space is not polluted, the other ones don't get polluted. You're leaving open the possibility of pollution of pot space. And therefore here, what is being pointed out is that the pollution is not possible for the pot space because the pollution belongs to the container and not the content. The pot space is the content. The pot is the container. Whatever pollution is there, whatever foul smell is there, that all belongs to the container and never to the space, the content. So that's what he says here. Yatha gaganam malinam malaihi bhavati. Gaganam, space. Just as the space appears to be polluted. Bhavati is eva, you add over there. Appears to be polluted by dirt. So when does space appear to be polluted? When impure clouds of dust, smoke, etc. are there in the space, which means when smoke space is accommodating something which contains pollution, for example, air, foul smelling air, or dusty smoke. All these things are being accommodated by space. It appears to us that space is polluted. And he says this is not really so. So he says balanam. Balanam means for the child, for the one who is not discriminating, for the ajnani, avivekinam. For the avivekinam, for the ajnani, the space appears to be polluted. Whereas, what is the truth? The pollution belongs to the container only. Right? Now, this transferring of the container's impurities to the content, the space, that is what we call superimposition, or in Sanskrit, adhyasa. The false transference of attributes of one substance to another substance is adhyasa. What is the learning from here? That I, the Atma, am not pollutable. No attribute really belongs to me. But when I say that I am unhappy, I am transferring the attribute of the mind, which is anatma, to me. What is the method of removing this pollution? Is removing the adhyasa only. There is no other method. So if there is a bulb in my vicinity, which is casting, let us say, a red shadow onto my white shirt, no amount of scrubbing my shirt is going to remove that red stain. I have to remove the source of the light, which is the red bulb. That red light has been falsely transferred to my white shirt. Similarly, for the removal of all these problems, we have to remove the adhyasa only. So he says, tatha abuddhinam, for the one who has no buddhi, atma api malino malaihi bhavati. For ignorant people, for the people who have no buddhi, no intellect, Jivatma appears to be contaminated with what? Sanchita, Agami, Prarabdha Karma, Punyam, Papam, etc. Right. And in his commentary on this verse, on this Karika, Shankara gives the example of the mirage water in the desert. He says that when water is superimposed on the desert, I am able to see the water in the desert, and I travel for miles to get to that water. It is a mirage. But even though I am able to see the water, the land, the sand on which the water is superimposed, it remains as dry as ever. It does not get wet at all. Similarly, though it seems that I am in bondage, that bondage is only adhyasa. I am ever free. I am muktaha only. All very beautiful verses for Nididhyasana. Now if you look at Karika number 9. Marane sambhave chaiva
मरणे
मरणे
सम्भवे
सम्भवश्चैव
Gatyagmanayorapi.
गत्यागमनयोरपि
Sthitau sarvasharireshu.
स्थितौ
स्थितौ
सर्वशरीरेषु
सर्वशरीरेषु
Akashena vilakshanaha.
आकाशेन विलक्षणः
विलक्षणः.
So we said that the adhyasa belongs to anatma. Anatma is mithya, and therefore, since the anatma itself is mithya, the attributes, the gunas which belong to the anatma, they are also mithya. So, what are these false features of the mithya anatma which I take upon myself? He says, marane sambhave cha eva. Birth and death is one pair. Gatya agamanam, going and coming, is another pair. Sarva sharireshu sthitau api, existence, even though this Atma exists in all the bodies, how can this all pervading Atma, which exists in all the bodies, Gatya Aganam, how can it leave one body and go to another body? So, consciousness, we have to remember, even when we say Atma occupies all the bodies, what is the one line, one word which we need to add to that statement to make it absolutely correct? The statement is Atma occupies all bodies.
And I am that Atma.
No.
Is that what?
Anybody? The statement is Atma pervades all bodies.
Sarvagata.
Okay.
No, but what do you need to add to this one statement to make it really true?
All bodies are in Atma.
All bodies are an Atma is the conclusion. So what we need to say is Atma also occupies all bodies. Because when you say Atma occupies all bodies, then you are leaving open the interpretation that where there are no bodies, Atma is not there. That is not the definition of all pervading. Therefore, Atma also occupies all bodies. And from there you derive that in truth, all the bodies are in that one undivided Atma. What travels? The Sukshma Shariram, the mind which travels, the RC which travels. And when the RC which travels, RC itself, remember, has got an Anatma component. What is the Anatma component of the RC?
The mind, the mana.
The mind, body, mind.
The Sukshma
RM.
Shariram. Technically speaking, the RM. Okay, RM plus OC is RC. Therefore, it is not the OC which travels. It is the RM which travels. When the RM travels, it appears as if the RC is traveling, and then we misunderstand that RC as the OC, and we say Atma travels. So 5 features are there: birth in this Karika, birth, death, arrival, departure, and location. Right? So he says these features of the Jivatma, they are only apparent features. They are not really belonging to the Jivatma. And therefore he gives the example, Akashena Avilakshanaha. It is exactly the same as the pot space and total space example. When the pot travels, it appears as if the pot space is traveling. But what has really happened? The travel of the content has been passed on, travel of the container, the pot, has been transposed onto the content, the pot space, which never really travels. Therefore, the conclusions are here. Number 1, Jivatma is not born from Paramatma. Number 2, Jivatma is not a product. Number 3, Paramatma is not a cause. That is to say, Jivatma is not Karyam, Paramatma is not Karanam. And if you add all these statements, then you have to come to the conclusion there is only one Atma which is different from the product and the creator. That one Atma is Karya, Karana, Vilakshana, Turyam. But this Karya, Karana, Vilakshana Atma is mistakenly thought of as Jivatma and Paramatma, two different entities. That Atma, which is indivisible, is divided by because of our ignorance. So we divide into two things, a Jivatma and a Paramatma. And between these two things, we create Karya, Karana, Sambandha, the relationship of creator and created. Okay. Karika number 10, we will chant. Sanghata swapnapravat sarve, swapnavat sarve.
Sanghata swapnavat sarve.
Sanghata swapnavat sarve.
Sanghata
Navat
swapnavat
sarve.
sarve.
Atma Maya Visarjitaha.
Atma
Atmamaya
Maya
visarjitaha.
Visarjitaha.
Adhikye Sarvasamyeva.
Aditye
Aditye
Aditmeva.
sarvasamyeva.
Nopapattirhi Vidyate.
Nopapattirhi
Nopapattirhi
vidyate.
vidyate.
So far, what did we do? We said that Jiva doesn't really exist. What about Jagat? Right? We need to negate Jagat only. When once you have negated Jiva, what is the necessity of negating Jagat? Can you think of the logic? I have negated Jiva already. Why do I then need to negate Jagat? Because we said that Jiva is not born, but Jiva's body is born. And that is the negation of the Jiva. The question is, why do you then need to say that, okay, universe also has to be negated? Why not just say, okay, fine, Jiva is done, we are happy? What is the reason?
Because we think the
Because
world
universe
always exists.
sorry.
Sorry, no, it's okay. Go ahead.
No. Because it is Ishvara Shrishti, or the other half, as I'm trying to, I don't know, understand it. Maybe I'm not
Logic,
getting it.
Arunaji?
No, I was just saying that for ourselves, we think that we are born and we die, or if somebody else is born and die, but the world remains always. So it appears, or we think it exists.
Okay. But here,
I don't
the
know.
argument is what? The argument is that this Atma is Karya, Karana, Vilakshana, neither a creator nor a product. Right? I have negated Jiva. So I have said that the Atma does not, Paramatma does not create the Jiva. But how did I negate the Jiva? By saying that Jiva is not born, Jiva's body is born. When I say Jiva's body is born, what happens? I take it that body is born from what? Sattva-bodha.
Five
Body is born
elements, Pancha Mahabhut.
Pancha Mahabhutani.
Hmm.
So am I not saying that, okay, fine, Paramatma may not be creating Jiva, but Paramatma is definitely creating Pancha Mahabhutani. Right? And therefore, if I accept that Paramatma creates Pancha Mahabhutani, I cannot say that Atma is not a creator. Because Atma may not be creating Jiva, but Atma is definitely creating Pancha Mahabhutas. And that is why it is necessary to negate the universe also. We have to say that Panchamahabhutas are also not created. How do we say that? How do we establish that Panchamahabhutas are never created? It's
E is equal to MC square.
sorry.
Logically, E is equal to MC square. We are talking about logic right now.
E is equal to mc square. You are saying the energy.
So
and
energy and mass, yeah. I mean,
okay,
Vyakt and Avyakt. Right?
they are not creatable at all, right? And that is why, what do you say? You say that Maya is there in the middle. If you have to break it up, you have to say that it is Maya which transposes itself into matter. And that same matter, when the universe is destroyed, goes back to unmanifest state, avyakta avastha. So there are two things, avyakta maya and vyakta maya. Are they created is the question. You are saying Atma creates Panchamahabhutani. Fine. Now we are taking it back. Panchamahabhutani means Maya. Maya means avyakta maya and vyakta maya. Does Paramatma create? When I say Paramatma, I'm using the word in the sense of Brahman. Does Brahman create Maya?
Maya is also Anadi.
Maya is also Anadi. But what kind of Maya is it?
Ignorance.
It is Mithya entity. Should never forget this basic difference. Brahman is Satyam, Maya is Mithya. Even though Maya is always there, Brahman never creates Maya because Maya is also Anadi. But always remember that Maya is Mithya. When you put them together, Brahman never creates Maya. Brahman never creates Jiva. Therefore, Paramatma is what? Karya, Karana, Vilakshana Paramatma. Neither the creator nor the created. That Paramatma does not create the Jiva. That Paramatma does not create Panchamahabhutas or the universe. And therefore it creates nothing. When there is the thing which is created, everything is Brahman only. There is no question of having a creator created relationship when there is only one entity that we are talking about. And so he says, Sarve Sanghataha Atma Maya Visarjitaha. All the bodies, Sarve Sanghataha. Sanghataha is the body mind complex. Sarve Sanghataha, all the bodies, Visarjitaha, are projected by what? Atma Maya, by the Maya Shakti of Brahman, of Atma. What is the example? Swapnavat. Just like in our dream, we create many, many bodies. For creating this Mithya world, remember that Maya is also Mithya. When the robbers are chasing me in my dream, in my dream there are dream robbers chasing me. When I need to get away from them, I only need a dream motorcycle. I don't need a real motorcycle. So Maya is Mithya. Maya created world is also Mithya. So remember, in this one Karika, Gaudapada has talked about all the three orders of reality. Dream is Pratibhasika, subjective reality. The waking state is Vyavaharika, which is transactional reality. And then there is Paramatma, which is the Paramarthika Satyam, which is absolute reality. So there are three real states, three states of reality: Pratibhasika, Vyavaharika, Paramarthika. In English, subjective, transactional, and absolute. Okay, now here in the second line, Gaudapada makes a very interesting point. He says, Yadi adhikyam sarvasamye. Adhikyam means greater than or superior to. So you have to connect this to the earlier sanghataha, the bodies. So he says, whether the body is superior or inferior. For example, the human body we consider superior to animal body. But the human body we consider inferior to the Deva's body of the gods. He says whether the body is superior or inferior, or is an equal body, sarvasamye, or the bodies are all equal, utpatti na vidyate. Remember, he says there is no logical evidence to prove that these bodies are born. It doesn't matter if the body is superior, inferior, or equal to others. Shastrically, there is no evidence to prove that these bodies are ever born. They are all mithya only. And Shankara in his commentary says, they are all born because of avidya only, mula vidya, and therefore there is no real existence for these bodies, in spite of the fact that they are useful for transactions, that you can experience them, and that you can perceive them. In spite of the fact, there is no logical evidence to prove that bodies are really born. They are all mithya only. Now we look at Karika number 11. प्रसादयो हि एक कोशः
प्रसादयो हि कोशः
व्याख्यातास्तैतरीयके
व्याख्यातास्तैत्तिरीयके
तेषाम् आत्मपरो जीवः
तेषामात्मपरो जीवः
खं यथा सम्प्रकाशितः
यथा सम्प्रकाशितः.
So we are still on the subject of the method. Because of avidya alone, Paramatma is mistaken as Karanam and Jivatma is mistaken as Karyam. And is Rasadayo hi ye koshaha vyakhyataha taitariyake. You can understand? Those who have done Taittiriya Upanishad, they can follow. In the Taittiriya Upanishad, Taitariyake, Rasadaya hi ye koshaha vyakhyataha. Vyakhyataha means enumerated. So Vyakhyataha Taitariyake. Taittiriya Upanishad enumerates what koshahas rasadayohi, starting from rasa, etc. Rasadayohi. So rasad is what? What kosha is referring to?
Annamaya. Annarasena.
Annamaya is correct. Annarasamaya. Okay, so Annarasamaya, that is being referred to here. Taittiriya refers to 5 koshas starting from Annamaya, etc. That is what the statement means. And not only that, Tesham Atma Paro Jivaha Samprakashitaha. What does Taittiriya say? In and through all those 5 koshas, what is revealed? Atma alone is revealed. Right? Samyatha, just like space. Just like the space within the hall or within the pot is exactly the space outside the pot. And therefore, all the Mahavakyams, they indicate the oneness of the Jivatma and Paramatma. Since that Aikyam is indicated, Paramatma we know does not have any birth. Therefore, we have to understand that Jivatma also has no birth. Hence, Jivatma is not a product born of Paramatma. We cannot say that Paramatma is Karanam for Jivatma. Right? Now, Brahman is, we use the word consciousness for Brahman. and we use the word Atma also for consciousness. What is the difference? What is the difference between Brahman and Atma?
Atma
Reference
is an
point.
individual body. Go ahead, please, Aruna ji. Please go ahead.
No, no, आप बोलिए please.
And then, as per my understanding, Atma is, we use it when we are talking about the individual body, and Brahman is when we are talking about everywhere, all pervading, Sarvagata.
Fair enough. But remember that the word Atma itself in Sanskrit means what?
I.
I. Therefore, when you say I, and you are using it as in the mukhya sense, in the principal sense, right? You are saying I, the consciousness principle, which is recognizable in my body, in this body. So that is why you call it Atma. But that same consciousness principle is present in the world. But you can't recognize it outside your own self. You know that, right? When you say there is a Sakshi, what does it mean? It is that consciousness principle, all pervading consciousness principle, which you can recognize only in your mind. And that is because you are conscious. That is why it is called Sakshi. In your mind, when you recognize it, that consciousness principle, I call Sakshi Atma or Jivatma. But that same consciousness principle is outside also. Outside it is called Brahman. The Chit I can recognize in my own mind. Sat I can recognize everywhere. That is the difference. But the difference is only in the name, not in the content. The container is different. The content is not different. So Nama Bheda, the differences in the container, they do not indicate any difference in the content. And now, of course, you have to, those who have not done Taittiriya will not follow. The Shruti Vakyam referred to here is Taittiriya statement Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. That is the definition of Brahman given in Anuvaka 1 of chapter 2 of Taittiriya. And the same definition extends Sava Esha Purushaha Annarasamayaha. That same Brahman obtains within all the Panchakoshas as the Atma starting from Anna Maya Kosha. So Gaudapada, by using the term Rasadayoho, is referring to this particular discussion in the Upanishad. And he's in the same Upanishad, it is later pointed out that the consciousness in the Jivatma is the same as the consciousness in the Paramatma. And hence the Jivatma apparently contained within the koshas is not different from the Paramatma, which is outside the koshas. That is why the example of pot space and total space was given. So Upanishad says in another section, third section I think it is, so yaschayam purushe yascha saviditye saekaha. That consciousness within the Jivatma and the consciousness in Adityaha, the Paramatma over here, is one and the same. So yaschayam purushe yascha sava aditye. In the Aditya is the same. And therefore this Karika here is talking about what? About the oneness of the Jivatma and the Paramatma. And of course, if you say Jivatma and Paramatma are one, then you have to say that Paramatma has no birth, therefore Jivatma has no birth. Therefore, Paramatma and Jivatma do not have any relationship at all. They are not Karya, Karana, Sambandha is not there at all. Okay. Now, before going to the next Karika, in the Karikas from, I think, 3 onwards till 9, we had a negation of Jiva's origination. Jiva was not born, we said, and that negation was logical. In Karika 10, there was a logical negation of the Panchamahabhutas. We said the universe is also never born. And verses 11 to 14 now, you are seeing the Shastric negation of the Jiva. So logical negation is over. You are seeing the Shastric negation. And therefore, we'll go to verse number 12, Karika number 12. We will chant. Dvayo dvayor madhugnane.
द्वयोर्मधुज्ञाने
Dvayo dvayor madhugnane.
द्वयोर्मधुज्ञाने
Madhugyane
Param Brahma Prakashitam.
Param Brahma
ब्रह्म
Prakashitam
प्रकाशितम्
Prithivya chaiva.
Prithivya Mudare Chaiva
दिव्यामुदरे चैव
Yathakashah prakashitah.
Yatha
आकाशः
Prakashitah
प्रकाशितः
So dvayoho madhu jnane. So madhu is what? What is madhu?
Honey.
Honey.
Sweet.
Okay. Madhu is sweet. Madhur, you say, right? It's sweet. So this is reference to something which you have not done. Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. There is a chapter called Madhu Brahmanam. So in that Upanishad, each section is called a Brahmanam. So in the second chapter, there is a section called Madhu Brahmanam. And there it says that Madhu is sweet and Madhu produces, and everybody likes Madhu. So Madhu is a source of joy. Brahman is also a source of joy. Therefore, Brahman is called Madhu. And this, essentially the verse, the mantra says, the Brahman obtaining in the Vyashti, the micro, that is Prithvi. Prithvi is taken as a micro, and the whole, no, Prithvi is taken as a macro. So Brahman obtaining in Samashti, the Prithvi, is the same as the Brahman obtaining in the Vyashti, which is the individual body. So that consciousness principle, that Brahman which is there in the individual body, is not different from the Brahman which is there on the earth. In short, the Brahman in the micro is the same as the Brahman in the macro. That is what it says. And so he says, the whole universe is this Brahman, and there is nothing different from Brahman, which is Brahman, Brahma idam sarvam. Everything is Brahman alone. Similarly, he says Jivatma and Paramatma, they are only different words, but they indicate the same consciousness principle. Just like when you say a glass of water and when you say a well, the containers are different, but the content is water only. So when the consciousness principle is referred to in the individual body, the technical term is Adhyatmam. When the consciousness principle is referred to in the universe, the technical term is, what is the technical term?
Devata.
Sorry.
Devata. Devata.
No. Yeah, but Devata is okay. But there is another term. Adibhutam. So Adhyatmam is consciousness principle in your body. Adibhutam is the consciousness principle in the universe. Adi Daivatam is what then? Right? So these three, you must remember, these are all pairs. Adhyatmam, Adibhutam is being referred to. Adi Daivam is different. It is a consciousness principle in the Devatas. Here we're talking about consciousness principle individually and consciousness principle in the universe, which is five Panchamahabhutani, right? That is why it's called Adi Bhutam. So here he says Dvayoho Dvayoho. You are taking pairs of two. Dvayo, pairs of two. What are the two? Micro and macro. So what can you take, for example, if you remember Tattvabodha, if you are taking the micro as the eyes, what is the macro?
Surya.
Surya Devata is the macro. If you are taking the ears as the micro, what is the macro?
Dig,
Big
Dig
Devata
Devata.
is the macro. So you must remember that for these kind of connections, you have to remember Tattvabodha, the faculty, the sense organs, and the presiding deities. Okay. So he says Param Brahma Prakashitam Madhujnane. That Upanishad in that Madhu Brahmanam, which is called Madhugyane over here, the knowledge given in the Brahmanam called Madhu Brahmanam, Param Brahma Prakashitam, reveals only Param Brahma. And Gaudapada gives in the Karika, he gives one sample. Prithivyam, that Brahman obtaining within the earth, the macro Prithvi, Udarecha, and that Brahman in your stomach. Udaram means stomach, but here you have to understand Udaram as Sthula Shariram, individual physical body. So Prithivyam, that consciousness principle Brahman, which is there in the earth, is the same as the consciousness principle which is there in the individual body. And Yatha Akasha Prakashita Eva, like the space obtaining within the pot is this space obtaining within outside also, total space. Or you can think of space obtaining within your stomach is the same as the space obtaining outside your stomach. That consciousness principle within the individual is called Jivatma. That consciousness principle outside the individual is called Paramatma. But really speaking, there are only viewpoints. Jivatma and Paramatma are the same. And since they are the same, you have to draw the same conclusion. Jivatma is not Karyam, Paramatma is not Karanam. Atma is Karya, Karan, Vilakshanam. Okay, any questions so far? All very beautiful Karikas. Nothing new is being stated. What we have studied is just being driven home. Okay, now we look at Karika number 13. Jivatmanor
Jivatmanor
corrected. Jivatmanor Ananyatvam
Jivatmanor
Abhedena Prashasyate
Abhedena
Abhedena
Prashasyate
prashasyate
Nanatvam Nindhyate Yacha
Nanatvam
Nanatvam
Indyate
nindyate yacha
Yacha
Tadevam Hi Samanjasam.
Tadevam
Tvam hi
Samanjasam.
samanjasam.
So here this Karika is addressing a possible doubt. What is the doubt? There are some portions of the scriptures which very clearly talk about Jivatma, Paramatma, Bheda. Right? For example, Mandukya Upanishad. Do you remember where it talks about two different entities, Jivatma and Paramatma?
The two birds,
So what is right?
Sakha Dvaya Sakha.
Dva Suparno Sayuja Sakhayaha
Ah,
Samanam Vriksham Parishvajate Tayoranyah Pipalam Swadvatti Anashtan Anyo Abhichakshitaha Abhichakshiti. So, Dva Suparna Sayuja Sakaya. Two birds which are friends. Samane Vriksham Parishwajate. They are sitting on one tree. Tayoho, of those two, Anyah Pipalam Swadvati. One eats the fruits. Anyaha Anashnan Abhichakshiti. The other one does not eat. Anashnan does not eat. And Abhichakshiti simply is a witness.
Yes.
So,
Observe.
clearly talking about two different entities. The one who eats is the Jivatma. The one who witnesses is the Paramatma. One is samsari, the other is not samsari. He is asamsari. He is ever liberated Paramatma. The Jivatma is samsari. Okay. And there's another section, Mundaka itself. It says, Yatha Sudipta Tavakad Visfulinga hi Sahasrashaha Prabhavante Swarupaha. I don't know if you remember.
Yeah,
Just
fire and
as
sparks.
from the fire sparks are born, in the same way, from the Jivatma, from the Paramatma, many Jivatmas are born. So the possible doubt is, Upanishad themselves talk about Jivatma and Paramatma as different. How can you say there is Jivatma, Paramatma, Aikyam? Right? Vedanta can be teaching only one. It can't say that both are different and at the same time say that there is oneness. So, which is the primary teaching? Is it that they are different or is it that they are one? What is the tatparyam of the Shruti? And so here, Gaudapada says, Jivatmanoho ananyatvam abhedena prasasyate. Jivatmano, you have to add over here, Jivatmanaha Paramatmanaha Ananyatvam, the non-difference between Jivatma and Paramatma, Abhedena Prasastite, is glorified in all the statements. The Tatparyam of the Shruti is that Jivatma and Paramatma are not different. And if you remember Bhagavad Gita, we have Kshetranyam Chapi Mam Vidhi Sarva Kshetreshu Bharata. What does it mean? In all the bodies, all the kshetras, I alone am kshetragyam. I am the knower, I am the consciousness principle in all the bodies. And then there is the seventh chapter. Apare yamatastanyam prakritim vidhi me param jiva bhuta mahabhaho yayadam dharyate jagat. What does it mean? He's talking about para prakriti and apara prakriti. And he says, I am the para prakriti, different from the apara prakriti. How am I to be recognized? Jiva bhutam. In the very form of the jiva I am there. And what is my speciality? Idam jagat dharyate. It is because of me that the entire universe is sustained. Right? And therefore, Gaudapada says here, nanatvam nindhyate. Nanatvam means differences. Nindhyate is criticized. Therefore, the differences are criticized. And again, those who have done Katha Upanishad, they will remember, Mrityo samrityam apnoti ya iha naneva pashyati. What does it mean? Yaha iha nana eva pashyati. The one who sees differences in this world, what happens to him? Mrityoho samrityam apnoti. He goes from death to death. He will have punarapi jananam and punarapi maranam. He will be samsara forever. As long as you see Paramatma as different from yourself, you will eternally remain as a samsari. And Taittiriya also has some other sections. Yada hevaisha etasmin udaram antaram kurute atha tasya bhayam bhavati. If you see that Paramatma is different from yourself, you will be always insecure. And there's another mantra in the Brihadaranyaka. Dvitiyad vai bhayam bhavati. Wherever you see a difference, a second thing, there is always fear. So how do you recognize, how do you reconcile all these two different stages of teaching? It's very simple. In the beginning stages, duality is required as a stepping stone. So whatever you do in the form of puja, upasana, this is all duality. They are the means, they are the tools. You have to go to Dvaitam to start, but you cannot remain in Dvaitam. And so he says, Yacha tadevam hi samanjasam. That teaching alone is proper. What teaching? Advaitam is the truth, not Dvaitam. That alone is proper. So with that, we'll stop for today. Any questions? There's a lot of input, but again, nothing is new. There's the repetition of what we have done. All right. So if you have no questions, then thank you for your patience. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate Om Shanti 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 Om Tat Sat Om Namah Shivaya. Thank you for your patience.
Om Namah Shivaya.
Acharya.